Sarah Martinez walked through the military training camp with her head held high, even though every step sent a sharp pain through her left leg. The other soldiers watched her with curious eyes, some whispering behind her back. She had been born with a slight deformity in her left leg that caused her to walk with a noticeable limp. But Sarah refused to let this stop her from pursuing her dream of becoming a sniper in the elite military unit. The training instructor, Sergeant Williams, looked at her with doubt written all over his face. He had seen many recruits come and go, but never someone with a physical disability like Sarah's. The military was tough, and he wondered if she could handle the pressure and physical demands of combat. "Martinez," he called out during the morning assembly, "are you sure you're in the right place? This isn't a charity program. We train real soldiers here." The other recruits laughed quietly, thinking Sarah would break down or quit. Some of them had already started placing bets on how long she would last. They watched as she struggled during physical training, her limp becoming more pronounced when she was tired. But what surprised them was her determination. While others complained about the difficult exercises, Sarah pushed through without a single word of complaint. During target practice, something amazing happened. Sarah picked up the sniper rifle for the first time, and it was like she had found her calling. Her hands were steady, her breathing controlled, and her aim was perfect. Shot after shot hit the center of the target, even from distances that challenged experienced soldiers. The instructor stopped talking and watched in amazement as this young woman with a limp outperformed soldiers who had been training for months. But the other recruits didn't see her talent. They only saw her disability. During lunch breaks, they would make jokes about how she would slow down their missions. They called her names and questioned why the military would accept someone like her. Sarah heard every word, but she never responded with anger. Instead, she used their doubts as fuel to work even harder. One evening, after a particularly difficult day of training, Sarah sat alone cleaning her rifle. The metal felt familiar in her hands, like an extension of herself. She thought about her childhood, how kids at school used to tease her about her limp. Her father, a former soldier himself, had taught her to shoot when she was just 12 years old. He had told her that being different wasn't a weakness. It was what would make her special. The weeks passed, and Sarah's shooting skills became legendary among the instructors. She could hit targets that others couldn't even see clearly. Her tactical knowledge impressed even the most experienced officers. But still, many of her fellow soldiers refused to take her seriously. They saw her limp and assumed she would be a liability in real combat situations. Sarah knew that words wouldn't change their minds. Only actions would prove her worth. She waited patiently for her chance to show everyone what she was truly capable of. Every night she practiced in secret, perfecting her skills and preparing for the day when she would finally silence all the doubters who had laughed at her limp. 3 months into training, the real test came. The entire unit was assigned to a field exercise that would simulate actual combat conditions. They would be divided into teams and sent into a dense forest area for a week-long mission. Each team needed to work together to complete objectives while avoiding enemy forces played by advanced training units. When team assignments were announced, Sarah found herself grouped with some of the soldiers who had been most vocal about their doubts regarding her abilities. Private Johnson, a tall, muscular man from Texas, rolled his eyes when he heard Sarah's name called for his team. Corporal Davis, who had been in the military for 3 years, openly complained to the instructor. "Sir, with respect, how is she supposed to keep up with us in the field? We'll be carrying heavy equipment through rough terrain for days," Davis said, pointing at Sarah's leg. Sergeant Williams looked stern. "Davis, your job is to complete the mission with your assigned team. Figure it out." The team consisted of 6 soldiers, including Sarah. Besides Johnson and Davis, there were Rodriguez, Kim, and Thompson. As they prepared their equipment, the tension was obvious. They spoke around Sarah, but rarely to her, making plans as if she wasn't there. When they distributed the heavy gear, they automatically gave her the lightest load, assuming she couldn't handle more. Sarah said nothing but quietly redistributed the weight, taking her fair share despite her teammates' protests. She had trained with full gear many times and knew exactly what she could handle. Her limp might slow her down slightly, but her endurance was as good as anyone else's. The first day in the forest was brutal. The terrain was rough with steep hills, thick undergrowth, and hidden obstacles. The team had to move quickly while staying undetected. Johnson kept looking back at Sarah with frustration, expecting her to fall behind or ask for rest breaks. But hour after hour, she kept pace with the group, her breathing steady and her focus sharp. By the second day, something interesting happened. While the other team members were getting tired and making noise as they moved through the forest, Sarah moved almost silently. Her years of compensating for her limp had taught her to be extremely aware of her body movement and balance. She could step around twigs and leaves that others would crush underfoot. How does she do that? Kim whispered to Rodriguez as they watched Sarah navigate through a particularly dense section of brush without making a sound. The real surprise came when they encountered their first simulated enemy position. The team was supposed to gather intelligence and report enemy movements without being detected. As they approached the target area, Sarah volunteered to move closer for reconnaissance. Davis immediately objected. "No way. If you get spotted because you can't move fast enough, we all fail," he said. But Thompson, who had been quietly observing Sarah's performance, spoke up. "Actually, she's been moving quieter than any of us. Maybe we should let her try." Sarah took position with her rifle and scope, crawling slowly toward the enemy camp. What happened next amazed her teammates. Through her scope, she could see details and movements that were invisible to the others, even with their binoculars. Her ability to remain perfectly still for long periods, combined with her exceptional eyesight and patience, made her the perfect observer. She spent 2 hours gathering detailed intelligence about enemy positions, weapons, and patrol patterns. When she returned to the team with precise information that would allow them to complete their mission successfully, the attitudes began to shift. For the first time, her teammates looked at her not as a burden, but as a valuable asset. The field exercise continued for 5 more days, and with each passing day, Sarah proved herself more valuable to the team. On the 3rd day, when they needed to cross a river with strong currents, her teammates worried that her leg would make it impossible. Instead, Sarah surprised them by being an excellent swimmer. She had spent years strengthening her upper body to compensate for her leg, making her more powerful in the water than most of her teammates. She helped Rodriguez across when he struggled with the current, and later that day she spotted an enemy patrol that the others had missed completely. Her attention to detail and ability to notice small changes in the environment saved the team from being detected multiple times. By the 4th day, the dynamic had completely changed. Johnson, who had been the most critical of Sarah, started asking for her input on tactical decisions. Davis began positioning himself near her during dangerous moments, not to protect her, but because he had realized she was often the first to spot threats. The final test came on the last day of the exercise. Their mission was to eliminate a high-value target in a heavily defended compound. The team had to work together to create a plan that would allow one person to get into position for a clean shot, while the others provided support and distraction. As they studied the compound through binoculars, it became clear that the target would only be visible for a few seconds at a time through a narrow window, and only from a specific angle. The shot would require incredible precision and timing. The distance was over 800 meters, and there would be only one chance to succeed. "This is impossible," Johnson muttered. "The angle is too difficult, and the window of opportunity is too small." Sarah studied the compound layout carefully through her scope. She calculated wind speed, distance, and timing. After several minutes of observation, she turned to her team. "I can make that shot," she said quietly. Davis looked skeptical. "Sarah, I know you're good, but this is different." "This is under pressure with everything on the line." "I've been preparing for this my whole life," Sarah replied. "Trust me." The team spent the next 2 hours setting up the mission. They created diversions on 3 sides of the compound to draw attention away from Sarah's position. Kim and Thompson would create noise and movement to the east. Johnson and Rodriguez would simulate an attack from the south, and Davis would provide cover for Sarah's extraction after the shot. As Sarah crawled into position, carrying her rifle across rough ground for over a kilometer, her teammates watched with new respect. Despite her limp, she moved with determination and precision. She found the perfect spot behind a fallen log, set up her rifle, and began the careful process of ranging the target. Through her scope, she could see the window where the target would appear. She controlled her breathing, felt her heartbeat, and waited. The diversions began right on schedule, and she could hear gunfire and explosions from multiple directions as her teammates executed their parts of the plan perfectly. Then, exactly as predicted, a figure appeared in the window. Sarah had less than 3 seconds to identify the target, adjust for wind, and take the shot. Everything went silent in her mind. The sounds of battle faded away. Her limp disappeared from her thoughts, and all that existed was her, the rifle, and the target. She squeezed the trigger with perfect control, and the rifle fired with a sharp crack that echoed across the valley. Through her scope, she saw the target fall immediately. The shot had been perfect. Sarah's radio crackled to life immediately after the shot. "Target neutralized," she reported calmly, as if she had just completed a routine training exercise rather than making one of the most difficult shots of the entire field exercise. The response from her teammates was immediate and electric. "Holy shit, Sarah! Did you actually get him?" Johnson's voice came through the radio, filled with disbelief and excitement. "Confirmed kill," came the voice of the exercise observer, a senior instructor who had been watching through powerful telescopes. "Clean headshot at 847 meters. Outstanding work, Martinez." As Sarah quickly packed her equipment and began moving to the extraction point, she could hear her teammates cheering over the radio. The same people who had doubted her abilities just days before were now celebrating her success with genuine enthusiasm. When she reached the rendezvous point 20 minutes later, her entire team was waiting for her with huge grins on their faces. Davis was the first to speak. "Sarah, that was incredible. I've never seen anything like that shot. The angle, the distance, the timing, it was perfect." Rodriguez slapped her on the back. "We couldn't have completed this mission without you. I'm sorry we ever doubted you." Even Johnson, who had been her biggest critic, walked up to her with respect in his eyes. "Martinez, I owe you an apology. I judged you based on your leg, and I was completely wrong. You're not just a good soldier. You're an exceptional soldier." The news of Sarah's perfect shot spread quickly through the training camp. When the teams returned from the field exercise, other soldiers who had never spoken to her before came up to congratulate her. The instructors who had been uncertain about her place in the unit now looked at her with pride and respect. Sergeant Williams pulled her aside after the debriefing. "Martinez, in 20 years of training soldiers, I've rarely seen natural talent like yours. That shot today wasn't just technically perfect. It showed real courage and composure under pressure. But the real test was still coming. The field exercise had been simulation, but soon the unit would face real combat situations. Sarah's teammates had seen what she could do in training, but would they trust her when lives were actually on the line? The answer came sooner than expected. 2 weeks after the field exercise, the unit received orders for deployment to a conflict zone, where they would provide support for ground forces engaged with enemy fighters. The mission would involve real danger, real bullets, and real consequences for mistakes. As the unit prepared for deployment, Sarah noticed a complete change in how she was treated. During equipment distribution, her teammates made sure she got the best rifle and scope available. During mission planning sessions, officers specifically asked for her input on sniper positions and target assessment. The night before deployment, Kim sat next to Sarah in the mess hall. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" she asked. Sarah looked thoughtful for a moment. "I've been preparing for this my whole life. People always saw my limp and thought it made me weak, but it actually made me stronger. It taught me that I had to work twice as hard to prove myself, and that preparation and determination matter more than physical perfection." "What do you mean?" Kim asked. "When other kids were playing sports, I was at the shooting range with my father. When other soldiers were partying on weekends, I was studying ballistics and practicing breath control. My limp forced me to find my own path, and that path led me to become the best sniper I could possibly be." Thompson, who had been listening from the next table, joined the conversation. "You know what's funny? We all thought your leg would make you a liability. But watching you work, I realize it's actually part of what makes you so good. You're more careful, more precise, more focused than the rest of us." The deployment zone was a mountainous region where enemy forces had been attacking supply convoys and military outposts. Sarah's unit was assigned to provide overwatch and sniper support for convoys traveling through dangerous mountain passes. The terrain was perfect for ambushes with rocky outcroppings and dense vegetation, providing countless hiding spots for enemy fighters. On their first mission, Sarah was positioned on a ridge overlooking a narrow valley where a supply convoy would pass. Her teammates were spread out in supporting positions, ready to provide backup if needed. As she set up her rifle and began scanning the area through her scope, Sarah felt a calm confidence that surprised even her. The convoy consisted of 6 vehicles carrying essential supplies to a forward operating base. Intelligence reports suggested that enemy forces had been planning an attack on this route for several days. Sarah's job was to watch for threats and eliminate any enemy fighters who attempted to ambush the convoy. For 2 hours, everything was quiet. The convoy moved slowly through the winding mountain road, and Sarah maintained constant surveillance of the surrounding area. Her teammates checked in regularly through radio, but there was no sign of enemy activity. Then, just as the convoy reached the most vulnerable part of the pass, Sarah spotted movement in the rocks about 600 meters away. Through her scope, she could see 3 figures setting up what appeared to be a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, aimed directly at the lead vehicle. "Contact," Sarah whispered into her radio. 3 enemy fighters at grid reference 345627, preparing to engage convoy with RPG. "Can you take the shot?" came Davis's voice through the radio. Sarah studied the target carefully. The enemy fighters were partially hidden behind rocks, and she would need to time her shot perfectly to prevent them from firing at the convoy. The lead vehicle was carrying medical supplies desperately needed at the forward base, and failure to stop the attack could result in casualties among her fellow soldiers. "I have a clear shot on the RPG operator," Sarah reported. Taking the shot in 3, 2, 1. The rifle fired with its familiar crack, and through her scope, Sarah saw the enemy fighter fall immediately. The other 2 fighters scrambled for cover, but it was too late. Johnson and Rodriguez, positioned on the opposite ridge, had clear shots at their positions and quickly eliminated the remaining threats. "Targets neutralized," Sarah reported. "Convoy is clear to proceed." The convoy commander's voice came through the radio, filled with relief and gratitude. "Outstanding work, Overwatch team. You just saved a lot of lives today." As the convoy safely passed through the danger zone and continued toward its destination, Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This wasn't a training exercise or a simulation. She had just prevented a real attack and potentially saved the lives of the soldiers in those vehicles. Over the following weeks, Sarah's reputation as a sniper grew rapidly. She successfully completed mission after mission, protecting convoys, eliminating high-value targets, and providing crucial intelligence to ground forces. Her teammates, who had once questioned her abilities, now fought to be assigned to missions with her. The turning point came during a particularly dangerous mission 3 weeks into the deployment. A group of soldiers had become trapped in a building surrounded by enemy fighters, and conventional rescue attempts had failed. The enemy had positioned snipers in multiple buildings, making it impossible for rescue teams to approach safely. Sarah was tasked with eliminating the enemy snipers to create a safe corridor for the rescue team. The mission required her to move through hostile territory to reach a position where she could engage multiple targets in rapid succession. It was exactly the kind of mission that her critics had said she would never be able to handle because of her limp. But Sarah had learned to use her supposed weakness as a strength. Her careful, deliberate movement style made her nearly invisible to enemy observers. Her patience and ability to remain motionless for hours allowed her to get into position without being detected, and her exceptional marksmanship meant that once she was in position, the mission would be completed quickly and efficiently. The rescue mission began before dawn. Sarah moved through the abandoned streets of the small town, her rifle slung across her back and her equipment carefully secured to avoid making noise. The enemy fighters had taken control of several buildings around the central square, where her fellow soldiers were trapped in what used to be a government office. Intelligence reports indicated that there were at least 4 enemy snipers positioned in different buildings, each covering different approaches to the trapped soldiers. Sarah needed to eliminate all of them within a narrow time window to allow the rescue team to move in safely. She spent over an hour moving just 3 blocks, carefully avoiding detection while she scouted the enemy positions. Her limp, which had once been a source of embarrassment, now helped her move with a distinctive gait that was both quiet and unpredictable. Enemy fighters expecting normal military movement patterns couldn't predict her next step. From her position in a partially collapsed building, Sarah could see 3 of the 4 enemy sniper positions. The 4th was hidden from her current location, but she had identified a second position that would give her a clear shot at all 4 targets. The plan was complex and dangerous. She would need to eliminate 3 targets from her current position, then quickly move to the second location to engage the 4th sniper, before he could alert other enemy forces or target the rescue team. Sarah contacted the rescue team commander through her radio. "This is Ghost 7. I have eyes on 3 of 4 targets. Beginning engagement in 60 seconds. Be ready to move when I give the all clear." "Copy, Ghost 7, we're standing by." Sarah lined up her first shot. The enemy sniper was positioned in a window about 400 meters away, partially concealed but clearly visible through her scope. She controlled her breathing, calculated the wind, and waited for the perfect moment. The first shot was perfect. The enemy sniper fell immediately, his rifle clattering to the floor. Sarah immediately shifted to her second target, located in a building to the east. This shot was more difficult due to the angle and distance, but her years of training paid off. The second enemy fighter was eliminated with a clean headshot. The third target had heard the shots and was trying to relocate to a better position. Sarah tracked his movement through her scope and fired just as he reached a new window. Another perfect shot. Now came the dangerous part. Sarah had to move from her current position to the second location, while avoiding detection by the remaining enemy sniper and other hostile forces in the area. She packed her equipment quickly and began moving through the building toward an exit that would allow her to reach the second position. As she moved through the rubble-filled corridors, her training in moving quietly despite her limp proved invaluable. She could hear enemy fighters searching the nearby buildings, trying to locate the source of the sniper fire, but her careful movement and knowledge of how to use her physical limitations as advantages kept her hidden. Reaching the second position took 15 minutes of careful movement. When she finally set up her rifle in the new location, she could see the fourth enemy sniper through her scope. He was actively searching for her position, clearly aware that his teammates had been eliminated. This shot was the most challenging yet. The target was over 700 meters away, positioned behind partial cover, and alert to the danger. Sarah would have only one opportunity to take the shot before he either spotted her position or called for reinforcements. She waited patiently, watching the enemy sniper's patterns of movement. After 10 minutes of observation, she identified a brief window when he would be fully exposed for about 2 seconds. It would be enough. When the moment came, Sarah's shot was perfect. The enemy sniper fell immediately, and the area around the trapped soldiers was finally clear of threats. "All targets eliminated," Sarah reported through her radio. "Rescue team is clear to approach." "Outstanding work, Ghost 7. Moving now." Within minutes, the rescue team had reached the trapped soldiers and begun evacuating them safely. The mission that conventional forces couldn't complete had been accomplished by one soldier, with a limp who refused to be limited by other people's expectations. The successful rescue mission marked a turning point not just for Sarah, but for how the entire military unit viewed capability and potential. Word of her achievement spread quickly through the command structure, reaching officers who had never heard of the young woman with a limp who was redefining what it meant to be an elite soldier. When Sarah returned to base after the mission, she found a crowd of soldiers waiting to congratulate her. These weren't just her immediate teammates, but soldiers from other units who had heard about her incredible performance. Johnson, who had been among the first to doubt her abilities, stood at the front of the group with tears in his eyes. "Sarah," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "what you did today saved 8 of our brothers. They're alive because of your skill and courage. I want to apologize again for ever doubting you. And I want to thank you for proving that determination matters more than physical perfection." The rescued soldiers made a point of finding Sarah to thank her personally. Sergeant Miller, who had been trapped in the building, shook her hand firmly. "When we heard that single sniper was going to clear the area so we could be rescued, I thought it was impossible. But you made it look easy. You're not just a good soldier, you're a hero." Over the following months, Sarah's reputation continued to grow. She completed mission after mission with perfect precision, earning the respect of everyone she worked with. Military strategists began specifically requesting her for the most challenging assignments, knowing that her unique combination of skills and determination made her capable of achieving what others couldn't. But perhaps the most important change was in how new recruits with disabilities were treated in the military. Sarah's success opened doors for other soldiers who might have been overlooked because of physical differences. The military began to recognize that diversity in physical abilities could actually be a strength, leading to new perspectives and innovative solutions. Sergeant Williams, who had initially doubted whether Sarah belonged in the unit, became one of her strongest advocates. I've learned more about leadership and capability from watching Sarah than from 30 years of military service, he told new recruits. She taught us that we should never judge a soldier's potential based on what we can see from the outside. Sarah herself remained humble about her achievements. When reporters wanted to interview her about breaking barriers for disabled soldiers, she always redirected the conversation to her teammates and the importance of preparation and training. "I'm not special because I have a limp," she would say. "I'm effective because I've trained harder than anyone else and because I refuse to let obstacles define my limitations. Every soldier in this unit faces challenges, mine just happens to be visible." As her deployment neared its end, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that first day of training, when soldiers had laughed at her limp. She had proven that physical perfection wasn't required for military excellence, and that determination and skill could overcome any perceived weakness. The morning before returning home, Sarah received a letter from a young girl whose father was serving in the military. The letter read, "Dear Sarah, my daddy told me about you. I have a limp too, and kids at school make fun of me. But now I know that having a limp doesn't mean I can't do amazing things. Thank you for showing me that being different can make me strong." Sarah smiled as she read the letter, knowing that her greatest achievement wasn't any particular shot she had made or mission she had completed. Her greatest achievement was proving that everyone deserves the chance to show what they're capable of, regardless of what others might think are their limitations. She had walked onto that battlefield with a limp, facing doubt and ridicule from those around her. But when the radio crackled with target neutralized, everyone learned that true strength comes from within, and that the most powerful weapon any soldier can carry is the determination to prove the doubters wrong.